Hey, everybody, play it forward. We are back with Joe Aliberti, filmmaker, writer, director. The film we'll be talking about today is Featurette. Joe, thanks for being here. Before you start, or we start, can you introduce yourself, please? Background, where you from, where you're at, what you like, favorite color.
Sure, sure. First, thanks for having me, Custy. I appreciate it. Um, yeah, my name's Joe Aliberti. I'm a filmmaker in LA. I've been here for 11 years. Grew up in Massachusetts and moved here to specifically with the express purpose of directing movies, and didn't really get to it until 6 or 7 years in. I was uh,
That's pretty good.
in well, in the early years, I was spending a lot of time in production as a line producer, as a production manager, obviously as a PA first, and was just learning as much as I could about the physical process of making a movie. I didn't want to be a director that, um, showed up on set with a script and relied on everyone else to bring it together for him. I really wanted to be involved in all the discussions, and I really wanted to understand, what everybody does, so that I could just be able to communicate better. And so I spent the first big chunk of time just on set for 12, 14 hours a day,
Yeah,
making movies.
yeah, yeah. Well, that sounds like you got yourself a good education there, and it's super important, with the mission of being able to communicate and understand where everybody's coming from. It's a better
I think
way
so.
to, yeah, direct and be more sympathetic ultimately.
Yeah, absolutely.
Well, today we're going to be talking about Featurette. It is a short film you wrote, directed. It is an intense little piece, very well produced. It starts off as kind of a comedy farce, and then it gets dark towards the end. And that's probably my favorite part is when it gets really gritty there.
Mm,
The themes are this fame, and this obsession for fame. And I'm sure, in the industry and in LA, it's very intense, as in, these entertainment centers. What was your experience? What was the inspiration that you had for writing this film and wanting to make it?
yeah. It started off as an exercise between myself and Anthony Carvello. He plays Sam in the movie, and he was in a movie. He was cut out of a big movie, and he had this experience, of disappointment, but took it in stride. And these things happen to actors all the time. He's not the first actor I've run into who said, "Hey, I'm in this movie," and he's not in it. Um, but so we started off. It started off as just this exercise to see if we could make something funny out of it, um, and to make a film. Really, that's it. That's all we wanted to do, was to just roll a camera together. We grew up in the same hometown, and we have sort of similar sensibilities. Um, we know a lot of the same things. We were exposed to a lot of the same things, I suppose. Um, so, anyways, from there, it just kind of snowballed into this larger thing. It was like, okay, well, we do this movie about this actor who gets cut out of a movie, but what if he's an asshole? What if we make him as unsympathetic as possible? Okay, let's keep going. How do we go further? Now, what if we try to engender some sort of empathy for this person who maybe doesn't deserve any? So it grew into this, complex kind of soup of emotions and a mash of different styles and genres. I mean, I think the first part of it is like this really slick dream sequence, and then we cut to this really low res kind of iPhone footage that he's making a documentary about himself. And then when the event happens, we cut back to like this more cinematic, style in scope. It's actually lit. we're using editorial techniques as opposed to in the iPhone footage. We really tried to just, you know, we really tried to just do things as sparsely as possible, with very little editing, so that it gave the effect that we were there sort of in real time. That he was like maybe watching these videos that he took of himself on the day on his iPhone or whatever that the DP took. So it started off as something, this very small idea, I suppose, as all films do, and it kind of snowballed into something larger.
Yeah, I'm just thinking, the actual theme is, one that is just shared amongst all humanity. I mean, we all
Yeah,
wrestle with like feelings of inadequacy and then overcompensating by what it is we do. That's often one of the first questions. Well, what do you do? Well,
yeah,
I'm this, I'm that.
yeah.
There's a whole range of responses. And so that's just something that's so human, is how do we reconcile our own sense of ourselves, and how do we do it in a way that's healthy with our development. So what are your thoughts about that, and how are those themes have played out in your life that have inspired you to take on the subject?
Well, I mean, in my own personal life, I mean, if you're in this business as an actor or a writer or a producer or whatever, you want to achieve some modicum of success at some point. And there's a lot of things that we do to either, fake ourselves into believing that we're successful until we actually get there. And in my case, I've made films in the past that I thought were gonna, I don't know, I guess propel me into the stratosphere or bring me something, and they didn't, and it's disappointing. But you keep going, right? You have to take it in stride, and you have to just make another film, or you have to go to the next audition or whatever. Um, this character doesn't understand that. This particular character, I think, doesn't really know who he is, so uh, he like, and he's seduced by this idea of success and fame, so much so to the point that at the first sign of failure, he has no idea what to do, and it's his life uh, spins out from under him, and he loses everybody that cared about him. He loses everyone that was there earlier in the film, and he winds up all alone. The thing about this character that's, I guess, kind of a warning sign is that he probably doesn't really learn much. At the end of the film, he's still there in the mirror, and he's woken up from his stupor, and he's just back in the mirror saying these affirmations, and he's going to start the cycle probably all over again. And to me, that's sad. That's something that I would think happens, uh, and it probably does happen quite a bit. But you want to, I think, avoid that. I think you want to be, you want to try to be honest with yourself, and understand that not every shot you take is going to land in the pantheon. You have to continually, especially, as a director, I can speak about this, but you're going to suck when you first start. You really are. And you really have to be okay with that. And you have to be okay with showing work that it maybe won't be your best work, but you show it. First you make it. That takes a lot of courage, and then you show it. That takes a lot of courage too. And then you go on and you do the next one, and the next one, and the next one, and the next one, and eventually, I think you get to a point where your craft is good, and then I think hopefully at that level it can elevate itself into the realm of artistry or whatever you want to call it.
Yeah, no, that's great. I mean, I certainly can sympathize with that journey. And one of the things that's been my kind of, I guess, experience along the way in that process is really redefining what success means for me, and
Mm,
no longer feeling like I've got to be a recognized public
yeah,
artist or name in order to feel like an artist.
Yeah.
and have legitimacy as an artist. And I think what you've just described with the craft, when you really start working the craft and you're in there and you have your hands in the clay and the mud and you feel confident doing that, because you've earned it, you've worked it, you know what the feeling of that vessel is like and how to mold it and sculpt it, then you're dirty enough to you feel like an artist, and it's real. And I think
Yeah.
one of the things that's tough too on the journey is that when I was a younger artist, young artist, whatever, I was inexperienced, like the people that I was working with for the most part. And there's the thing that's kind of unique to filmmaking, sort of this pro and con of filmmaking. It's this collaborative sport, which is awesome. And when the collaborative dynamic is self-delusional in terms of everybody's trying to act like they know what they're doing, nobody really does, it
Hmm.
creates issues, you know? And
Yeah.
so, that lack of transparency is kind of unique to filmmaking because it's a band, and it's okay, I think, in this discussion, I want to say to any younger filmmakers or older, whatever, watching this, it's okay to not know what, if you know what you don't know, that. And it's a good thing to ask and communicate that, because that's how you build trust and really craft something together and get to craft, and not kind of do stuff that's faking it. So
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. On this particular one, on Featurette, we had a really small crew. I think that there was it was myself and three others who were on set making this movie. So, and it was really important to me to have the camera in my hand. It was really important to me to obviously you have a direct line to the actors when you're a director, of course, but it was really important for me to feel everything through. I think a lot of times, I made a short a few years ago, and it was like it was I guess it was more of the real deal in terms of Hollywood standards. There's two Alexas, and there's a grip truck, and there's the craft service table, and there's the prop truck, all this stuff. And you have to learn how to work in that environment, of course. But for this one, I was really interested in stripping as much away as possible, so that we could do it, number one, cheaper,
Yeah, of
and number
course.
two, so that I can sort of um, understand things and get to learn and have this tactile feeling of making this film with my own two hands.
Yeah.
Um, we had two DPs on the project. They kind of shared duties, David Marican and John Beatty, and they were both great. And between the three of us and our sound mixer, Ray Gaona, that was it. It was just me and the actors after that. And we had, help. My wife did the costumes because she's a costume designer, and we had a few more, hands on set. But that was it, and it was great to just be able to set up a frame and not wait for it to be lit, or not wait around and just really do it. Um, and that was the most gratifying part of all this, was like making the process small enough again where you can kind of relearn it. And then in post I cut the picture myself. um and like, that was another whole nother thing. I had a co-editor, Lucia Wong, and she was there to help finish it. But to sit with the project over the course of a summer and to really try things out and be there, and like there's no one in between you and the material, it was a wonderful just learning experience, growth experience as a filmmaker, and I really
Awesome.
loved it.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
And that's, where I got into filmmaking outside of the school system, film school. So, to me, I had a lot I didn't know and a lot I could, try to do myself. So I wasn't kind of confined into any single process. And from the get-go, starting off as a writer, it's like you and a pen and a paper. So I was just like, You don't need all this distracting stuff. You don't need thousands, tens of thousands of dollars to make a short film. You just script around what you have, and you have
Right.
this actor, you have this experience. Take what you have, man. You got there's awesome DSLR cameras, going on now. It's like beyond. When I was
Yeah.
really starting out, the 5Ds came out, and that was a big cinematic game changer. So now I don't know what's, the latest hotness, but 5D is still solid, man. That's a smoking camera. And
Yeah.
there's a lot you can do in the intimacy with that material that you are, not having the craft tricks and the grips and feeling like you got to be responsible for that. You just boom, tune that out and craft the story.
Yeah, that was the best part. That was the best part of this. And working with big crews it's inevitable. I think, especially when you work inside the system and even outside the set. I mean, indie sets have, you know, low budget movies have big crews, right? But part of what I was saying earlier about trying to be able to learn as much about the craft and then going out and doing it and making a film in a handmade way and being tactile is you get to figure out what's possible and what isn't possible so that when you do work on these big
Yeah.
sets, you're not victimized by the laziness of other people. Sometimes that happens.
Yeah.
Sometimes you say, I want to do this, and they say, well, that's not possible. And then you don't really know if it's possible or not. So you say, okay, I'll figure it out. But
Right.
if you know that you can do it, then you might be able to suggest, or
Yeah.
you might be able
Yeah.
to have a conversation about how to get something closer to what's in your mind's eye.
That's great. Yeah.
And I
Absolutely.
just thought that was really valuable. I thought that was
Oh,
it's a really valuable thing to have.
super valuable. Incredible. You don't get taken advantage of in that way, like you said. Um,
Yeah.
Let me ask you this: in terms of the movie and the message of the movie, my favorite part, as I mentioned, was at the end, and really those self affirmations to me were the most kind of visceral part of it. And he says some really interesting stuff. He talks about the main character. And whoa, by the way, before I forget, props to your wife. I mean, we got to give her credit. Those costumes are great. I mean, she did a great job. I want that plaid jumper, man. So um
Yeah, she's very talented, and she really did. And it's a short film, so it's not like we have hours and hours or
oh,
tons of
sure.
resources. That plaid jumper was from Yoni, which is a little boutique shop here in LA.
Okay,
That I
cool.
that I absolutely love,
Okay.
and would just it just fit this
Yeah, yeah,
character.
yeah, for sure.
You know. But yeah, she did a great job. Thank you.
That's cool. Yeah, and female leads, her little poofy outfits were great too.
Yeah,
Um,
yeah, yeah.
so in terms of the message, he's talking to himself in the mirror towards the end of the movie. And if you don't, can I say what he said? Is it not too reveal?
Yeah, sure.
So he's like,
No.
I am, my something along the lines of my mission is to inspire. I'm an inspiration, something like that. That is his
Yeah,
focus about what he does. And he says he's God's work. I believe he's
yeah,
doing God's work, right? And there's this whole kind of play with gratitude and trying to really embody and own gratitude to kind of that can do different things to create a sense of, well, I'm close to the common folk. I have humility, this false sense of humility, or I'm deserving of whatever it is I have. There's various psychological games that you can play with that, all the above. So in the message of the movie, and like you said, the character does not necessarily learn this time from his fall from grace, but what is the lesson?
well, it's not so much that he believes that he is doing God's work. He says, you're God's work to himself.
Yeah,
So he's
yeah,
he's he's what he's doing, I think, is he's trying to um, somehow justify himself. He doesn't feel like he as a human being is enough, and
right,
he probably felt that getting this role, being in this movie, dreaming of himself on that billboard is what would make him and his life worth a damn. the message is that being results driven in life
Yeah.
is only going to let you down.
Yeah.
You can't do that. You have to really, really love the work. I think you have to love the work. And I think Sam in this movie is just a person who doesn't know himself enough, doesn't love himself enough. That's why he treats people the way he does, probably. Um, and you know, him saying those affirmations, I think, make him forget the stuff about himself that he doesn't like. Um, and he's going to wake up and continue to try, I guess, to find meaning, but he's attaching meaning to himself from meaningless things in the long run. So the point is not to do that.
Yeah, yeah, no, that's great. I'm
Yeah,
really grateful that you went in and kind of explored that because it's, it's a revealing and it's not easy to, uh, maybe verbalize your own message that you're crafting as a writer. And that's what's so unique about talking to an artist about his art, is what were you feeling in the process of crafting this work in relation to the message or the message that came through you as you were crafting it. And I think my follow-up question for that is, yeah, success by external validation, whether it's, your salary or the level of, how many other human beings know your name, isn't going to cut it, right? Those two things ultimately don't work. And we've seen it, time and time again. What does
right.
work?
That's a good question. For me personally, the only thing that really works for me is to feel like I'm working, doing things for others, which this character probably doesn't really do very often. But I think what does work is just uh, knowing and understanding that working as a filmmaker or an actor is going to take a lot of failure, and you're going to have to be okay with it. And that's part of the process. I guess really just you know accepting the process and not really thinking about too much else. Just
Mm,
accepting the process and going through the steps. There's no skipping steps.
yeah,
You can't really skip steps.
yeah,
I think Sam Cummings is a person who wants to make a documentary about himself and let it go viral and skip all these steps,
yeah,
and maybe be famous
yeah,
overnight. It just doesn't
yeah,
work that way.
yeah,
It just
yeah,
doesn't work that way. You just have to put in you just have to find what you love to
yeah,
do,
yeah,
and you have to work at it, and
yeah.
you have to keep going,
Yeah,
really.
yeah, yeah. No, that's great, man. I'm 100% believer of that, and I think the key word is accepting, and that can like diverge out. It's like almost like an ink plot, it just spreads out into all these categories, like a nerve, accepting yourself, of course, loving yourself is part of accepting yourself, accepting others, accepting the way life is, accepting, the truth of you that's in your heart and that you're feeling and expressing in any given moment, accepting all that inner stuff um, is so foundational to having your feet on the ground.
Yeah, I mean, look, there's like a way to choose peace in all of this like madness, right? It's like,
Yeah,
and that's really all you can do. That's really all you can't control a lot of things. All you can control is if you are showing up,
that's it.
and that's it. And
That's it. That's it. That's it. Showing up as a light that you are and guiding whatever, whatever comes of
yeah.
that. Um, Joe, how have you been changed as a person since making this movie?
Think I have now a representation of how I never want to be to my loved ones or to or in my career. So and I think for a long time I was nervous about um, making things that would fall on flat on their face. kind of like Sam's experience of trying to make this and it not working out. I had those fears for a long time as a filmmaker, and it prevented me from working a lot. I would say, oh no, this isn't good enough. We'll fuck this. This is no good. Let's wait, blah blah blah. I think after making this, I sort of expunged all of those, or I have a better relationship to those fears than I did before. Um, if they were on a spectrum, they'd be at the lower end of the caring spectrum. I appreciate that they're there, but I think now I sort of just am able to uh, kind of work a little bit more without the fear of failure, because it happens. What are you gonna do?
Awesome. No, that's awesome, man. I mean, what I hear you saying is, less fearing appearances, judgment of others, more going with your own internal direction, taking chances. I mean, and then valuing your own work based on what you think.
Yeah, basically. I think, like I said, for a long time, I was worried that my work wouldn't be as good, or I wouldn't have the resources, or I wouldn't have the abilities. Basically, I was afraid of, you know, sucking, and and whether I do or not is up to everyone else. But I don't really have those same fears anymore. Right now, it's just all about continuing to try and work and tell stories in this way, and that's it. You know,
That's awesome. Do the work and show up.
yeah, yeah.
Joe Aliberti, filmmaker, writer, director. The short is Featurette. Thank you, Joe, for being on the show, man. That was great to speak to
Oh,
you.
thanks
Great
for
to meet
having
you.
me. It was my pleasure. Thank
All
you.
right. Till next time, everybody. Peace out on Play It Forward.